Hey friends, it's Tracy. Welcome to today's video. I am all about the denim and orange together. It is my favorite combo right now. I have a few projects to share with you today. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Here are the supplies I'm using in this door hanger, a 15-inch wood round from Burrow Wood, and I'm going to give it a coat of this plaster color chalk paint. Then for the checkerboard around the border, I am going to use this denim blue paint by Ceramcoat and my 3/4 inch flat brush. And so I just start somewhere and just kind of go around. I eyeball it, but you know, if you're new to kind of doing stripes like this, you can always measure it, get your ruler out and measure. I just kind of eyeball it and just go around until I get all the way, from one point to the other. Now I'm going to work on what I call my faux plaid pattern, and I just take my fan brush, and the paint I'm using is granite gray. It's an apple barrel paint, and I just dip about half of my fan brush in paint, and then I just go down to make the stripes. Then I'll go across to make the other plaid, what I call the faux plaid pattern, and I just kind of go in this motion just to make the faux plaid pattern. And then for the orange, what I'm using is just a 1/2 inch flat paintbrush, and then for the orange, it's called Canyon Orange, and so I'm just going around and just making just a border. I'm kind of making a wavy motion. That way it's just not very, particular. If I mess up a little bit, it's no sweat off my back kind of thing. And then this stylus I got from the Dollar Tree. It makes wonderful polka dots. And so I'm just dipping that in the orange paint and just making some dots. And then once that's dry, then what I'm using is milk chocolate Americana brown paint. I am just going to do my shading. I really feel that it just kind of adds a bit to my painted projects. I just love doing this little shading underneath or on the side of, my painted projects. And I'm just doing that. I just dip my flat paintbrush in paint. And then the other half in clean water, blend on a paper towel and just go across like that. Now I did get a little bit thick there at the top, but later on I just go back and add just a little bit of that plaster color chalk paint, and it was good to go. And so also what I'm doing now is just going around and just adding some shading to the orange as well as to the outside of that blue stripe. I had done some shading with that. And then I also add another layer in. The beauty is in the details, guys. You will always hear me say that. The beauty is in the details. So I go back and I add some white shading around it. And I really feel that by doing this, it really just kind of gives the door hanger, it just gives it that extra pop where it looks really nice when it's painted and everything's finished and varnished and just ready to be hung on a door. Once my paint is completely dry, I'm using my ultrafine Sharpie marker and just going in through the faux plaid pattern, just going around and giving it some Sharpie marker. That's my best friend. I just love it. It just kind of really brings my painted projects to life. Now I'm going to work on the welcome in Cricut Design Space. While that is drying, I am going to be designing the welcome stencil, and I'm going to use the Smart Stencil that I got from Cricut. Now here in Design Space, I am just going to click on an image and I'm just going to type welcome and figure out the one that I want. Now if you do not have a Cricut, I would suggest maybe Googling this shape or Googling something that has welcome, and you can do the trace method or the pencil on the back of the paper, and then you can, trace it out or something to that effect. But, if you've been following me for a while, you know that I love to hand letter, but I'm a more blocky font, and I really wanted this welcome, that I found in Cricut Design Space. And so what I'm doing is I'm resizing this welcome to 10 inches. And then once I get it to 10 inches, what I'm going to do to make it a stencil, I want to bring in a square shape, and then I go up to the top where the size is, and then I unlock the lock so that I can manipulate the size of the rectangle, and then I just kind of put it over the welcome, and then I want to bring the welcome to the top so that I can see it and kind of position it where I have enough space on all sides. Then I gather it just by dragging my mouse across everything and, kind of attaching it together. Then I go down to the bottom right corner and click slice. And then I just move those 2 layers out of the way. And then I am left with my stencil. And then I'll just go ahead and send that to my machine. The machine I'm using is the Cricut Explore 3. And that is one that does have the smart materials where I don't need a mat. I can use a mat in it, but the Cricut Explorer 3 does have the option where I don't need a mat, and so I can use the smart materials. And then I'll go ahead and cut this out using my Cricut Explorer, and then that will be my stencil that I'm going to paint onto my door hanger. This smart stencil is just like vinyl, and I'm just kind of doing like a reverse weeding where I'm just taking out the letters, inside and, exposing all of the letters. And so then once I get all of that done, I make sure that I have all of the, little intricate parts inside the letters. And so then I just take my scraper and just kind of burnish it on the back. And I have just found by working with this smart stencil, I can peel it off if I do it backwards, because everything just peels off nicely. And I just use my scraping tool just to kind of smooth everything out. And then I'll transfer it onto my door sign. And so I kind of figure out the placement where I want it. I kind of start in the middle just to make sure that I'm, getting it centered the way that I want. And then I lay it down, just making sure that I have all of the air bubbles. So I don't get too many air bubbles, but I just make sure that there's no bubbles and that everything is nicely placed down, and so that I won't have any bleeding. And then I just have a foam brush here. And what I found, what works best for me is to kind of get as least bleeding as possible, I just am taking that foam brush and using a thin coat of paint on there. That's what I put for the base coat. And then once that kind of halfway dries, I go ahead and go back over it with a second coat of paint, going a little bit thicker, and then I go back again with the third coat, and then that gives me the thickest coat of it. And then I get really crisp lines. Very happy with the way that this stencil does for this sign. And so then I just tear it off. This is not reusable stencil. This is actually, just a one use only, but that's okay with me. And so then I just take my poking tool and just get out all of the intricate pieces. And this is very satisfying to me. I don't know. It's just very, very satisfying to me. It's just take all of this stuff out. And so then once that's done, then we're going to move on to painting the fall. And so I just have like a 1/4 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch flat paintbrush. I just kind of air draw that out just to make sure that I have enough space, and just start forming my letters, just writing out fall. And I gave that 2 coats of that Canyon orange paint, and then I'll go back and add my happy dots on there. And I just love the way that this door hanger is coming together.
highlight, I will get my flat paintbrush and some white paint and do some highlighting, just with my flat brush, my clean water, and then white paint. I'll blend on a paper towel and just go around the letters just to give it some highlight. I'll do that with the welcome as well as the fall. And then I'll go back with my little detailing brush. It's a little loved brush that I've had on hand for many years. It's kind of like my best friend, just kind of like my little Sharpie marker as well. Kind of runs a close race, my little detailing brush and my black Sharpie marker. But those two things I love to use. It just really brings my painted projects to life. And so I'll just go through the letters and just kind of, highlight them. And for the fall, I'll just make a little swoosh or a little cursive in the bubbles of the happy dots just to make them pop and give them a little bit of character. And then once all of that is dry, what I'll do is I'll take my ultrafine Sharpie marker. I'll go around and give just a little of the black Sharpie marker just to give it some black color, bring it out just a little bit. Then I also, since this is a fall project, I really like to shade and bring out my letters, especially in my fall projects. And so I just take that brown paint, the milk chocolate, I'll take a flat paintbrush, I'll do my shading the same way and just go around the letters just to make them pop. And so I'm just have some burlap here that I got from probably Hobby Lobby. And I just make a 4-inch loop on each side and just kind of figure out how I want the tails. And at first I cut it a little too long and I go back and trim that up in a bit. And so then the 2.5-inch denim that came from Craft Outlet, I'll make a loop of that. And I love my Easy Bow Maker. If you're interested, this just really makes my bow making really easier. It really does, and so the little dowels kind of hold everything together. And so I just twist it in the middle just to bring the right side of the ribbon on the top. That's the reason why you twist it. And so, a lot of friends have trouble making bows. And I just really feel that this bow maker just really does kind of make my life a little bit easier. Just take my scissors, just dovetail those, and just kind of layer just the different ribbons on top. I also have some window pane ribbon that I'm just adding to it. I'm not even making any kind of loops or anything, just kind of put a piece of that. This right here came from Craft Outlet. I'm just making probably about a 2.5-inch to 3-inch loop, twisting it, and then I'll make another loop. And the reason for the twist is because I want to bring the right side of the ribbon on the top. And so then I have, one tail going one way, one tail going the other way. It just really adds to the character of the bow. And so this ribbon right here is actually from Hobby Lobby. And so just making a couple of loops, twisting it, and then turning it on the right side. And then I will put that in there. I want those tails going the opposite direction, so that's why I kind of flip that around. And then the blue and white really country this checkered right here came from Craft Outlet. Guys, I get questions all of the time. Where do you get your ribbon? Where do you get your ribbon? Where do you get your mesh? Where do you get your supplies? And so, guys, the majority of it is Craft Outlet or Hobby Lobby. Those are my two go-to places. I will get some others from, Sam's Club or Walmart at Christmas or any place like that. But yeah, the majority is Craft Outlet or Hobby Lobby. And so, guys, once I get all of my ribbon on there, I just take a pipe cleaner, twist it. I use my needle nose pliers just to get a really tight twist, and so that my bow kind of pops like this. I am in love. I just love making little bows like this, and that is going to look great on my door hanger. All of these florals came from Hobby Lobby, and so for the flowers, I just split them in half, put half on one side, one on the other, and then those Pitberry picks also came from Hobby Lobby. I just put those in there. Now, these white ones are the ones that I like to use all of the time that come from Hobby Lobby as well, in the like all around garland section. So then I have two zip ties. I'm just going to zip tie these together, and then I tie on the bow, and then I'm going to use my 1/4 of an inch staples in my electric stapler. I got this from Sears a long time ago. It's a Easy Fire. It's an electric staple gun, and I just love it. And so then I have already made sure that my staples do not go through my board. And again, this 15-inch round came from Burrowood. And so then before I put my swag on, I remembered I needed to drill 2 holes in there. So I used my High Chica electric drill just to drill 2 holes in there at the top. This blue wire I've had in my stash for quite a long time. I think I got that from Craft Outlet many years ago, but it makes a great hanger for these decorative doors like this. And I just drill those 2 holes and then, thread that wire in there, and that works great for the hanger. Okay, so then now I'm like, okay, let's go ahead and put this swag on there. So I'm just twisting my bow on. I make sure that everything is twisted tight, and I actually, I do that off camera, but I actually go back and add some E6000 glue to the bow. Even though I have it twisted on there, I always try to, just give it some extra stability with some glue. And that is what I use to staple the swag and everything onto the door hanger. I just love the way that this turned out, and I hope that you did too. Okay, guys, the very last thing that I added was some felt pads. I just get these from the Dollar Tree. I glue those on the back, about 4 of them. And so then that helps with the clanking of the clacking on the door. That is one of my pet peeves. I cannot stand a door hanger or something bouncing against a door, and those felt pads work great. This wreath is using one of the 18-inch wire forms. Now I got this one from the Dollar Tree. These are the 10-inch mesh that I am using. They all came from Hobby Lobby. And here's just the back side so that you can see the burlap snowball mesh, as well as a specialty fall mesh and a regular burlap mesh. So for this specialty mesh, what I did is I measured out 12 inches of all of them. So all 3 rolls, I measured out 12 inches, and I'm going to use all 3 of these together to put in a bundle to put onto the wreath. So how I make my bundles, cruffles, ruffles, whatever you want to call it, I use little clips. They kind of help me just in my wreath making. I bend over the ends so that they're not, frayed or ragged at the ends. And so I just fold it over 2 times. I clip it, and then I turn it around, fold it over again, clip that. And then that is what I'm going to put all together in like an X pattern. And then I'm just attaching them to my wreath with a pipe cleaner. So for this 18-inch wire frame, I used 22 bundles of the 3 mesh together. I ended up using one whole mesh roll of the specialty mesh, the fall mesh. I didn't quite use the whole rolls of the snowball mesh and the burlap. I get questions about that, and honestly, guys, there are some times that I have a little bit on one roll. Like, I don't start a full roll when I'm doing a wreath, and so I will try my best to tell y'all bundles, but the way that I work, sometimes it doesn't work like that. And so since I'm a wreath maker, I always have tons and tons of mesh. But for this wreath frame, I did use 22 of the bundles, putting them on this wireframe with a pipe cleaner. And then how I put on my bundles is I go on the inner ring, I go on the outer ring, I go on the inner ring, I go on the outer ring. So then here it is all finished with my 22 bundles of this 10-inch deco mesh. So then for the next layer, I'm using this 10-inch orange and white mesh that I picked up from Michael's, and I'm cutting this at 8 inches because I just want a small color on the burlap. I don't want a whole, since this mesh roll is a little bit smaller, I just want just a tiny bit of accent color. And so then I used 11 of these orange and white 8-inch mesh in this wreath. Here are my ribbons that I'm using in this wreath. And so this blue truck with the pumpkins that I did get from Michael's, I did not want to chop up my truck because that would just be such a shame because it's so cute. So I ended up cutting 2 trucks length of the ribbon, and that actually measured to 14 inches, which worked out great. So then I just adjusted my other ribbon sizes to accommodate what I wanted to do for this wreath. And so what I'm showing here is I almost always dovetail my ribbons, and I dovetail by just folding it in half and then folding it in half again, and then just using my scissors to cut a V cut or a dovetail. Now the exception of not dovetailing is when I use window pane mesh, or if I use some stripe mesh that I don't want it's going to look odd. So I just, make that determination. Okay. So I get some questions about my tiny attacher. Now y'all have seen me use this before, and I was, the most common question is, can I use a regular staple? Absolutely. I just like to use this tiny attacher because it puts a teeny tiny staple in my or in the ribbon when I gather it together. I like to use these, I like to do mine in bundles so that when I, put it in my wreath, I can just go. And so it puts a teeny tiny staple in there so that when I gather it together, it's not bulky. I don't even know that the staple is there. So absolutely, if you want to use a regular staple, go right ahead. I'm just kind of sharing what works for me. Okay. So, for the blue truck with the pumpkins, I paired it with the plaid from Michael's as well. And so what I'm kind of sharing here is this is how I'm going to shape my ribbon to put on my deco mesh wreath. And then I will just, put it in the wreath. And what I do is since this is a larger wreath, because usually I use a 14-inch wire form, but this is an 18-inch. And so what I'm also doing is adding in some raffia, and I just tie it off, just put a knot in it. And I put the raffia in with the orange and burlap and the gold, and I kind of do a tic-tac-toe pattern. I did the the trucks, then I did the burlap bundle, and then I did the orange and the gold. And so then I just kind of go in a tic-tac-toe pattern all the way around the wreath until it is, I'm completely full.
Okay, we're going to paint up this truck and make it really cute. Now, this blue truck pumpkin ribbons from Michaels is the inspiration for the truck. So these are all of the paints that I'm going to be using, as well as using some tools, my spatula and my knife, to get off the hubcaps and all of the wooden stuff on that truck. I'm also using my heat tool to heat up the glue just to get things off a little bit better so that I can paint everything. And to my surprise, this has never ever happened to me ever, but like the top layer of the truck peeled off. It is what it is. This is the only one that I had, so I just had to go with it. Everything worked out fine. Anyway, so I just gave this truck 2 coats of this primary blue Americana paint. For the pumpkins, I'm using this spiced pumpkin Americana acrylic paint, and I just painted those up. Not doing anything special, just gave them 2 coats of spiced pumpkin orange paint. I wanted my fenders to be the scrapbook paper, so that's why I took all of the extra things off of this track. So I just have some orange and white gingham paper from the craft store, and I just traced it out of this scrapbook paper. I made sure, since this is a pattern scrapbook paper, I made sure that my patterns were the same, meaning I traced them out at the same time, one on top of the other, so that they would be the same, since it's a pattern. Because I'm not going to lie, I have been known to trace things out of scrapbook paper, like these little truck fenders, and my patterns were off, and a sweet viewer pointed it out, and I didn't even realize. So then now I'm just taking my fine Sharpie marker and just going around the edges just to kind of outline it and bring out, just kind of make my projects pop. Going to glue everything down, and I'm using my Fabri-Tac glue as well as some hot glue. The Fabri-Tac is the permanent hold, and then the hot glue is the instant hold. I'm using some clips that I get from the Dollar Tree just to hold things down while they're, while they completely dry. And so I love, just using my little clips like this to hold things down, because I don't want them to pop off. For my sign, I'm using one of these small little jagged signs that I got from Amazon. I will have a link for it in the description box below if you're interested. Now, I base coated the sign with just some buttermilk Americana paint, and then to kind of give it a background, I'm using my fan brush and some spiced pumpkin orange paint. And so I like to use my fan brush just to give it, just give it a background and just kind of, give it just some character and some cuteness. To shade, I'm using this light cinnamon brown paint, and previously you saw that I had 2 of these little signs that I painted. I went ahead and took advantage of, since I had everything out, I went ahead and painted 2 of these signs like this, but I'm only using 1 for this particular project. But what I'm doing now is I'm just taking my flat paintbrush and dipping my or half of my brush in paint, the other half in clean water, then blending on a paper towel, and then I'm just going around at the edges as well as on the side of the painted stripes that I made with my fan brush, just to give it some depth and dimension. Okay guys, I get questions all of the time about my brushes. Now, my favorite brushes are linked in my Amazon store. They're the one stroke brush set because I just love all the different sizes in there. To do my hand lettering, I like to use this, especially on this smaller sign like this. I'm using the number 2 flat paintbrush. It is in the set that I just previously had shown you. And so if this is something that you're interested in, you can get flat paintbrushes at any craft store, Hobby Lobby, Walmart, Joann's, Michael's, anywhere that paintbrushes are sold. Even Dollar Tree has them. Anyway, but if you don't have access to go to the store, you can find them in my Amazon store. And I have found a free font that is the most similar to this style of font. It is called Geldotica. I will have the link for that as well in the description box below. I do not, have any kind of like training or anything on my lettering, only because it's specific to what word I'm spelling out. And so it just kind of just depends on what I'm spelling out, will depend on how I kind of shape my letters. Anyway, that Geldotica font is the closest that I have found to this type of lettering. Anyway, so then now what I'm doing is just taking the end of a paintbrush and just making happy dots, which make me so happy, on each end of, or on the ends of each. Now I'm giving it a coat of the black splattering just with my stiff brush and my wooden stick, and then I'll go back over it with the buttermilk paint, this same paint that I had used for the coating the sign. And then I'm using my fine Sharpie marker just to add some outline to the sign. I don't care that my lines are straight. I don't want them to be. I want it to look whimsical. And then I'll go back with the extra layer and do my ultrafine Sharpie marker. I like to, on my signs, especially around letters, I like to add this ultrafine Sharpie marker look. I really feel that it kind of makes it pop. And then I just take my liner brush and just highlight the happy dots just to make the letters pop. Circle sign that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just using my heat tool just to get off that sticker. And the scrapbook paper, I'm not quite sure where I got it from, probably Hobby Lobby or Michael's, maybe Joann's. Anyway, so I just cut out this circle, and then to attach it, I just used my adhesive tape. You could also Mod Podge. I just did not have my Mod Podge handy, so I just kind of used what I had, and then I seal everything with my varnish sealer that you always see me use in my painted projects. Okay, so then to add a bit of depth, I'm just using my vintage photo ink and my finger dauber, just going around that. Then I realized that, oh, there's a little paper that needs to be taken off, so I just used my sanding emery board to go around, and it wasn't coming off quite as well as I would like it to, so I got out my trusty sander, also from the Dollar Tree, just to get off more of that paper because it was just taking too long. So it's good to have tools, and I'm a tool junkie as well as a craft junkie, so it's great to have all of these different tools that we can use for our projects. Just to give it some doodling, I'm using the same Americana buttermilk paint and just going around the edge of my circle just to give it some highlight and some, cuteness. And then once that paint dries, I'll go back around it and add my fine Sharpie marker just to give it some outline. To decorate my truck and to add, some cuteness for the pumpkin patch, I'm using this decorative Excelsior that I get from Joann's Craft Store, as well as these small miniature pumpkins from the Dollar Tree. Now I have just some, regular orange as well as some off-white and some glittery orange. And so to add something for my pumpkins and stuff to stick into, I'm just cutting off some pieces of styrofoam, cutting those down to size, and then I'm going to glue these onto the truck. And I use that same blue color, it is Primary Blue Americana, to paint the styrofoam so that it matches the truck. And then once that's dried, then I'll go and glue the Excelsior on the truck, and that way the styrofoam is what I will use to stick my pumpkins and my greenery. So then to add some dimension for my truck before I attach it to the sign, I'm just using some tumbling tower blocks and just using some antique wax and a baby wipe, and I'm just giving some color to the tumbling tower blocks, and then I'm going to glue those to the back of the truck as well as the sign to make it pop and make it stand up and give it some dimension. And as I was putting my truck on there, I was like, I need some small pieces of the Jenga blocks to adhere to the top of the truck. So I pulled out my mini table miter saw. Now I got this couple of years ago off of Amazon, and I just checked and it says it's currently unavailable, so I'm not even going to link it or anything. I think some people are finding these at Harbor Freight or maybe other home improvement stores, but it's just a tiny saw, a little tabletop saw that you can cut small wood items or small things like this. So just sharing what I did. So I just put some of the small blocks behind the top of the truck so that everything was dimensional. I also just hand painted a small sign from the Dollar Tree and hand lettered pumpkins for sale and attached it to the side of the truck. Then I attached my truck sign in the middle, and I used these cable ties that I get from Amazon, and these work great if you don't have, signs that have holes in them, some that you can put wire in them, or if you don't want to put a hole in a sign, these cable ties work great, and you can find them in my Amazon store. And so then another tip that I just want to share that I learned by watching another wreath maker is just putting a tiny dot of glue on some of the ribbons if you don't want them to move around, just like these blue truck. I want it to kind of stay in place. I want the plaid to be showing, so I just put a tiny dot of glue behind each of the blue truck ribbons. And I just added some fall florals into this wreath. I get my fall florals from Hobby Lobby, Michael's, Walmart, some high-end, more quality flowers from the Dollar Tree. I also added more dimension by adding a few of these pumpkins that I had in my stash. And I'm kind of showing you here how I input the picks. I just use some skewers, and I make sure that they are secure. I glue them into, the pumpkin, and then I add them to my wreath. this is another reverse canvas project and in the denim and orange, making a sweet pumpkin patch for the fall season. I'll give you a brief overview of what I did, how I did it, and what I used. I will have a link to the original video in the description box below if you would like to see it, because it was on an event. It was a Facebook Live, and so I just trimmed it down just to give you the just parts of it, but I wanted to give you the option if you would like to see all the talking and exactly what I did in real time. Again, I'll put that video link in the description box, but let's get started with what I did. All right, so what I'm starting with is a 20 by 10 canvas. And so it's 20 inches long, 10 inches wide. And so what I did is I painted it sable brown. That is the color that I painted. I painted the sides and the back sable brown, and I didn't worry about painting the inside because I'm going to be adding some scrapbook paper. Now for the frame of it, what I like to use are these giant craft sticks that I get at Walmart. And what I do is I give them a coat of antique wax. Now this is kind of like a stain, and I just use a wet baby wipe to do that. It kind of really smears on there very well. Then what I'll do is I will take my vintage photo distress ink and I will go around the edges of the cut sticks. Now what I do also, guys, is I do not have my sticks all the same length. I have them cut different lengths so that it kind of makes it look a little wonky and a little country, where it's not quite all of them symmetrical. I want them to be a little bit, kind of jagged, and it just kind of gives that country vibe that I like for my projects. So I give them a coat of that, and also give it some shading. I guess that distress ink adds some shading and just definition and depth that I like for my projects. So since I am going to be making this a reverse canvas project, what I'm going to do is add some kind of fence looking scrapbook paper that I got from Hobby Lobby. And this is an 8.5 by 11. I use 2 sheets of that and just slip it underneath the frame so that it holds it there in place. Then I'll go ahead and start adding the rest of my frame from those giant craft sticks all the way around. And then we will work on our pumpkin patch. So for the pumpkins, they most all came from the Dollar Tree. I'm using one of the larger ones is from a garland that I picked up at Hobby Lobby. It has pumpkins and it has footballs on it. I just took it apart and then just, added it for one of the larger ones. What's good is when you do a project like this, when you have just the kind of like offset of different sizes, because not all pumpkins in the pumpkin patch are the same size. Anyway, so how I attach the paper is just with Mod Podge, either the heat transfer method or just by adding wet Mod Podge to the pumpkin. So once that was all dry, I'm going to add all of my little finishing touches that I like to do by shading, just adding a little bit of black Sharpie marker. I'm going to add, some paint splatters on my pumpkins because I do love that, the way that that all looks. And as I've mentioned before, is I am here to inspire you to, get your creative juices flowing, to do things your way. If I'm doing it a certain way and you don't like that, please do it yourself. Do it the way that you like it to match your style. I was really into, and still am, the denim blue and the orange combination together. And I just love the way that this pumpkin patch turned out. So then here I have some styrofoam blocks that I got from the Dollar Tree. They're already in small blocks, but then I cut them in half a bit more with my knife. And then I gave them a coat of the sable brown. And then I'm just going to attach them to the bottom of my reverse canvas project, because that is what I'm going to be covering up with some fine Excelsior. That is like Spanish moss. I get that at the Hobby Lobby. And that styrofoam is going to help now that is what I'm going to be sticking my florals and my fence and all of the stuff into. But I do use Excelsior to cover everything up. It's very whimsy. It's very, just country cute, and I love it for my projects. So this right here, this is that fall foliage that I got from Hobby Lobby. It comes on a garland, and I just took it, just unraveled them, and then going to use them as small picks in this decor piece for the pumpkin patch. Piece. Now, those leaves that came from the sunflower bush from Hobby Lobby, I just snipped off a few sprigs of that and then just started layering it into that styrofoam. I also did use some E6000 as well as, that Gorilla Hot Glue, and reinforced my styrofoam down on the board so that it would have a stronger hold. Okay, then now I'm just adding the second layer of my pip berries. Now these pip berries came off of a garland from Hobby Lobby. And then next we're going to add some sprigs of those berries from the Dollar Tree. Next, I will add my sunflowers, and as I always say, the beauty is in the details. I just love adding and just layering different projects like this. Now, that greenery garland that I got from Hobby Lobby, I'm just snipping off a few of those, and then I'll just tie them around each of the kind of like stems of the pumpkins so that they, look like the greenery. And I didn't put any pumpkin tendrils on it. I had thought about it, but actually then when I started doing it, I completely forgot. So that is something that I do like to do, is add some pumpkin tendrils. Anyway, so what I'm showing here is I decided that I want to add a little dimension for my pumpkins. And so I just kind of peeled back that Excelsior that I had on there because I need this foam. This is fun foam. You can get this at Hobby Lobby, and I layered that up, and I'm gluing it down really good, sticking it to the styrofoam so that it, gives a very strong hold. Now, I use Gorilla brand hot glue that I do like, and it does give me a good hold, but I just want to make sure that I have a good surface, or, surface for my foam to stick to. And so then I'm just layering my pumpkins on, and it just kind of, making them sideways a little bit, just so they're not quite up and down, just like what you would kind of see in a pumpkin patch. And then I take that Excelsior and kind of, push it in between the pumpkins. And then now that I have my pumpkins on, I take more Excelsior, and then I'm getting my U pins. You can get these in the floral section at any craft store. And then I just stick the U-pin in, the Excelsior because it just kind of holds everything in. I wanted to add some paint splattering, and I just do this by just dotting my black Sharpie marker. I should have done that before, but just by dotting, just my black Sharpie marker, it gives me the look of the paint splatter without getting paint on everything else. All right, so then now I just take more of those, just snips of those greenery garland, and then just my U-pins, and then go in between so it kind of looks like vines of the pumpkins. That's kind of what I was going for. And just using the U-pins just to, stick into that styrofoam. The styrofoam I like to add to my projects because it really adds as a buffer, and it just gives something for my embellishments to stick into. I used some of that greenery from the Dollar Tree, that kind of two-tone eucalyptus. And then I decided I reworked the bow. Some of the ribbons that I thought I was going to use, I ended up not using, and I pulled out this polka dotted one, something that just went in line with my decor. And so I just cut these probably about, I don't know, 6 inches, and then I dovetailed the ends of them, with the exception of the burlap. I don't dovetail that because it just wouldn't look good. And so then I also added some muslin fabric as well as some of that brown fabric, then just some laces and trims. I'm just crisscrossing them. I'm going to gather it together at a pipe cleaner and then twist it really, really tight. And then what I do is I snip off some of the excess, and then I use my electric staple gun to staple it to the frame at the top because, just to give it a good hold. Then I'm just adding a few sprigs of excelsior and a couple of those wooden roses from the Dollar Tree. And those are just so pretty, guys. I am so in love with this. I just love it so much. This is how it's looking so far. Now I've decided I'm going to make a pumpkin patch sign. All right, so what I'm starting with is one of these boards from this wood pile pack. Now what I did is I cut it in half with my box blade, and then I thought I was just going to make a big one like this, but then I decided to go ahead and actually cut this one in half just with my scissors. Then I'm going to notch out the ends of it to make it look jagged, and then I'm going to paint my pumpkin patch sign. And I gave it a coat of buttermilk acrylic paint just to give it, kind of an off-white color. Then I'm going to hand letter pumpkin patch just with my number 2 flat paintbrush that I like to use. I have shared this before. A number 2 flat paintbrush is what I'm using for this. And what I like to do is kind of like air draw it out just to make sure that, I'm going to have enough room. This is just some tips that I have found over the time. So I appreciate so many friends loving my style of writing. And as always, you can find handwritten fonts in my link tree. I do have a list of dotted handwritten fonts that I have found from defont.com that you can download onto your computer. That way you can practice and, perfect your craft of what you want to hand letter and make your own cute little signs like this. So once I finish making my little happy dots, I'm taking the number 8 flat paintbrush out of my favorite paintbrush pack, and then just shading with some milk chocolate brown paint. My favorite way is to dip half of my brush in paint, the other half in clean water. I blend on a paper towel, and then I go around the edges as well as the letters just to give it some definition. And so then once that's all dry, then I will doodle around with my fine Sharpie marker, and then I'll go back and also go on the inside with my ultrafine Sharpie marker. On these, I'm actually doing the fine Sharpie marker as well as the ultrafine Sharpie marker. And then just to highlight my happy dots, I'm just taking my liner brush and just going in and making a little comma in the happy dots just to make them pop just a little bit. And then also I will give it a coat, or actually do some paint splattering with my stencil brush and a stick. That is my preferred method of how I do it. I do make sure that my table is covered because paint splattering is a little bit messy. I need something for my pumpkin patch sign to stick to, so I pulled out one of those giant craft sticks. I had given it a coat of that antique wax just with a baby wipe. I just gave it, just some brown color, and then cut off the ends, and then at the bottom I just made a point so that it would stick into the styrofoam. And then I'm just going to glue all of these on, and this is how it turned out, guys. I love it so much. Now I hope you do too. If you haven't made it to this part in the video, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate you. If you're not already subscribed, I would love it if you would hit that subscribe button and the bell next to it to be notified every time I upload new videos. All right, guys, see you in the next one. Have a great day, and God bless you.